instructional designer who will be attending the session. So that one I'll do it myself. For those of you who don't know me, I am Mr. Mtanyana. Ms. Mkabile, are you in?
Yes, Mr. Mtanyana, I'm in now.
Okay, that's great. So I was just sharing the program with the colleagues. I'm going to hand over to you so that we can start. Colleagues, is there anyone who objects the recording of the session? Anyone who objects the recording of the session? None. Okay, so we will be recording the session. Over to you, Mamun Kabile.
Thank you, Mr. Mtanyana. I am trying to share my screen. I don't know if you can see it now.
Not yet.
Not yet. Right. Let me try again.
We can see it.
You can see it.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, colleagues. I note that Mr. Mtanyana has already started with the program. Our program is not very long. It's a just 2-hour program, should I say, because we are hoping to finish at 12, but we are hoping to achieve a lot out of this program. You might have received the poster where we are saying that the theme of this workshop, or I call it a webinar, is the art of academic integrity. And we are saying that we want to promote academic writing through the use of Turnitin. And this is just one of a series of webinars that we will be running. Today, we are targeting Tata campus. Tomorrow, we will be targeting the Buffalo City campus. And on Friday, we are targeting the Komani campus, and on Monday, the Paraworth campus. But we will be using the same link, colleagues. So I just want to encourage you that if you have colleagues whom you would love to join this webinar, after perhaps you felt like you like it, then please ask them to join us, because we will continue with these webinars for the rest of this week. What is the aim of this webinar? We want to promote academic writing while creating an awareness on how to use Turnitin. And we want to ensure that we are doing this for improved student success. So basically, that is our aim. What do we want to achieve? Basically, we are creating a space where we can have a conversation, where colleagues can talk and share their own experiences on how we can promote academic writing in our classrooms. As I indicated, that the aim is for improved student success. So it applies to both undergraduate and postgraduate students. We want to interrogate and engage with the challenges that academics experience. This is what we want to hear. This is what we want to discuss. This is what we want to debate. In addition, colleagues, there will be a training session on Wise Up, and that session will be used to empower our academic staff with knowledge and skills on how to create and mark assignments using the Turnitin tool. We really want academics to understand the Turnitin tool as a tool that is used to empower the students. So after this workshop, we are hoping that our colleagues will be able to help students to access, to understand, and use Turnitin. So basically, our understanding is that Turnitin should be used by the students
without any changes
more than the academics. I think Mr. Mtanyana has already shared the program, so I will allow the Director LIS to actually give us a welcome and a brief background on why we are having this workshop. Over to you.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Samuel Noini, the Deputy Director for the Library and Information Services for the Mthatha campus. Thank you to everyone for joining us today in this academic writing and Turnitin workshop. Colleagues and students, Internet has made a readily available massive amount of data to the distance of our fingertips, so making it easier than before to breach the academic integrity. In South Africa and around the world, student plagiarism and cheating have become a matter of concern, especially when it comes to teaching large classes. This concern has received much attention and it impacts negatively on the maintenance of academic standards and integrity at our university. Academic integrity means demonstrating moral behavior and honesty in all academic work. It is the ethical principles that guide academic principles. And we can break it down into academic misconduct and academic dishonesty, meaning that academic misconduct is a violation of ethical conduct, for example, intentional cheating or plagiarism, while academic dishonesty refers to behaviors that lead to the misrepresentation of scholarly work. Academic integrity is integral to credible scholarship. Yet the escalation and publications and the desire to publish often bring into play the important practice of academic integrity. As the rush for publications increasingly becomes an obsession, rather than a fundamentally loved scholarly activity, so the ugly side of academic fraud, cheating, and plagiarism begin to accelerate, and this manifests in research outputs. While some view that students should be punished, others suggest that prevention is preferable to punishment as a guiding principle for policy development and address academic misconduct in universities. Students should be educated on the importance of mastering established academic protocols as a way of learning the discipline. In maintaining academic integrity, we all have a role to play. Instructional designers, teaching technologists, and librarians can play an important role in our university by educating our user community, which is the students and the academics, the researchers, and introducing the latest technologies, enhancements such as plagiarism detection software, in our case, which is Turnitin. We need to provide academic staff with contextualized professional development activities. Academics also have a major role to play in the process of maintaining academic integrity. They should discuss with their students why it is important for them to complete assignments honestly, and what they will learn by maintaining standards for academic integrity. It is also their role to ensure that they are enrolled in Turnitin, they've got classes, they can enroll their students. They ensure that they are also embedded in Wise App, which is in our case is Moodle. In combating plagiarism, Walter Sisulu University has a plagiarism policy in place and Turnitin as a detection system or software has been implemented. The Directorate of Learning and Teaching and the Library and Information Services have been mandated by the campus senate to ensure that academic integrity is maintained in our university. This workshop, as indicated by our program director, aims to promote academic writing while creating an awareness on how to use Turnitin for improved student success. This workshop, colleagues, is one of the many to come. As I have indicated that we have been mandated by the campus senate and the CMC that we ensure that we maintain the university's academic integrity. On that note, allow me to welcome our guest speaker, Ms. Shanali Kavenda, And our colleague, Mr. Lungile Mtanyana, will be taking us through a practical session on Turnitin and Wise Up. A warm welcome to all staff who are here, which are our academics, the librarians, and the DLT colleagues who have found their time in their busy schedules to join us today. I welcome our students at undergraduate and postgraduate levels who are amongst us today. I see they came in numbers. Enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ngoyini, for that warm welcome. Oh, Ms. Mkabile, are you still around?
Yes, I thought I was just going to introduce you so that you can then introduce our guest speaker, and then I will disappear just for a minute.
Okay, can go ahead.
All right. I think according to the program, we are supposed to introduce our guest speaker, and it's going to be done by Mr. Mtanyane, colleagues. Mr. Mtanyane is the access manager at WSU Institutional Library Services, and he will be introducing our guest speaker for today. Over to you, Mr. Mtanyane.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Mkabile. I'm going to share my screen, colleagues. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. Colleagues, I will be introducing our guest for today.
But the font is too small.
The font is too small. Okay.
Yes.
No, it's fine. I will be reading from my side. So, colleagues, we have got our guest from University of Cape Town. Her name is Shanali. She is a lecturer within the Staff Development Unit at SILT. So, although Shanali's teaching experience began in secondary education, a return to higher education to pursue her own studies prompted a shift to an interest in higher education landscape. She has worked in varying capacities in 3 South African institutions of higher learning and has strong interests in the scholarship of learning and teaching. Her particular brief in the staff development team is to support part-time and non-permanent staff, teaching staff. She currently teaches on the postgraduate diploma in educational technologies, co-conveying the online learning design module. She has designed several online staff development short courses. She teaches core concepts in learning and teaching and an online introduction to assessment. While continuing to work in the field of staff development at UCT, she is working towards her PhD, exploring the experiences of non-permanent staff who teach in higher education. Colleagues, allow me to hand over to Shanali to take us through her presentation. I know that she's a person who likes to engage participants. So I do believe that if you have got any comment or any question, you can just type it on the chats while she is presenting, and then you can always also unmute, raise your hand, and then when there's time, we'll then allow you to unmute and ask those questions. Remember that we would like this session to be a conversation. Thank you so much, colleagues. Over to you, Shanali. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Mr. Mtanyana. I know you as Lungile. It's very weird for me to say your surname. So, Lungile, thank you for the very warm welcome. And to the colleagues in the room who have already spoken, thank you indeed for the very, very warm welcome. As Lungile has said, I'm based at UCT, and in the work that I do, we are very, very, very keen on helping people to engage with what we're doing and to speak and so on. And so the first thing I'm actually going to ask everyone to do is, if you wouldn't mind popping into the text chat and just letting me know whether you are, what department or discipline you're here from. So if you're based in in commerce, in a particular department, in the accounting department, just let me know. I would like just a little bit of a sense of who's in the room. And the other thing I would love to know is whether you're here as a staff member or whether you are here as a writer, as a student writer. I'd like just a little bit of a sense of who is, what kind of roles we're here in, because I might slightly edit my presentation as we go to try and make sense of that. So I would love for you to jump into the text chat, tell me where you are joining me from and what role you're here in. So are you here as a student? Are you here as a staff member? And I see that Lungile has kicked the ball off, and I would really, really love for folks to do that for me. It will just indeed help me to make sure that I adjust a little bit to who is in the room and can keep it relevant. As Lungile has also said, I am very much somebody who really, really enjoys engaging with people. And so I would love to hear questions or comments as we go along. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the text chat. I can see the text chat. I will also happily respond to voice questions. So you can either put up a hand or even just unmute, and I will see you and call your name. And I see that we have folks starting to add to our list. So welcome to the colleagues who are joining us. Welcome to the students who are joining us. I am excited to engage with you today. So I've got I think about 30 minutes, a little bit less than that. So I'm just going to start my timer on the side. So we're here today to think a little bit about this question of the art of academic writing, the issue of academic integrity, and I would like to kick us off by asking the question, what is plagiarism? It's something we talk about a lot, and what I would encourage you to do is to take a moment and scribble down for yourself, what do you think plagiarism is? What does it mean to you? Okay, so take a moment, scribble down for yourself, what does plagiarism mean to you? I'm going to encourage people to keep introducing themselves in the text chat. I see we've got a range of people here today from various places. Great to have you all here. And then I wonder if someone would be so bold as to, and so brave as to unmute and share their idea of what plagiarism is. Very, very excited to see that we've got so many students in the room as well. And I want to open this up. This is a question not just to staff, it's a question for staff and students. What do you think of when someone says to you plagiarism? What do you think of? What's on your mind when someone says to you plagiarism? You got a couple of options here for a response. If you're feeling, Anu, go for it. Anu George, are you there?
Yes.
Hello.
Good morning,
Greetings.
everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, colleagues and the presenter. I'm Dr. George from WSU University. I'm from the Department of Consumer Science Education.
Welcome,
and
Dr.
my thought,
George.
yes. In my thought, I'm a staff member.
Mm-hmm.
In my thought, I can put plagiarism as quoting another person's work exactly like that, without paraphrasing or changing anything about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. George. So we've got one key idea on the table, quoting without paraphrasing. Anyone else who'd like to, Nanswakazi? Nanswakazi, I see a hand. Go for it.
Yes, I'd like to add on what she said and say, without acknowledging the source of that information.
Okay, so quoting without paraphrasing, and then around acknowledging sources. Oh, that's very strange. Sorry, colleagues, are you seeing something about Microsoft Whiteboard at the moment?
Yes.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen and try and reshare my screen. I don't believe that is my screen. I think maybe someone else is sharing a screen right now. Okay, let's try again.
I see there is P-word. Yes. P-word, can you please unshare?
Thank you so much for unsharing. That's very helpful. Thank you. Colleagues, you should be able to see a screen with two people playing tug of war on it right now.
Yes.
Yes, okay, back to my screen. Fantastic. So we've got two really useful contributions. We've got a colleague saying to us that it's about quoting without paraphrasing, so using other people's words and using them directly without any intervention of your own. We've got someone else who's saying it's about not acknowledging sources. And then I see Rambitsai. Do you want to jump in? I'm maybe mispronouncing your name. Please help me if I am. Are you there?
Thank you, Shanali.
Good morning.
It's not only good morning, colleagues. It's not only about quoting. I think it's just about using ideas from a source, whether you are quoting, whether you are summarizing, whether you are paraphrasing. But as long as you use ideas, concepts, any information from a source and you do not acknowledge, then that is plagiarism.
Okay, so it's about acknowledgement. It's about recognizing what our ideas are built on. And very often when we talk about plagiarism, the thing that we feel like plagiarism is in tension with is what is yours? What is originally yours? What can you claim? And I see that a colleague in the text chat is saying the practice of taking somebody else's ideas, passing them off as your own. Yes, indeed. And I want to just encourage people to keep letting me know where you come from and whether you're here as a student or staff member. And please feel free to ask questions as we go along. Okay, so the difficult thing, I think when it comes to plagiarism, the really difficult thing for many students, and I'm going to speak specifically to the students here rather than to staff for a second. The difficult thing is understanding what is yours and what is somebody else's sometimes. And that is something that often experts in a field, experts in a discipline, develop that sense of what can they say without quoting and what do they have to quote for over a period of time. Whereas students haven't really had that time as yet. I'm just going to ask, someone has their speaker on. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself, that would be great. Okay, so there's this tension that we're going to balance as we walk through today's session. What tends to happen in universities is that we have this ongoing challenge of plagiarism, and universities often want to use software to deal with that. And two colleagues dealt with that in a piece in The Conversation. It's a really, really nice article, and the link is on the slides, and I will share the slides with you a little bit later on so that you can have a look at those if you want. Colleague from UJ, colleague from Rhodes University, wrote very persuasively around the idea of academic writing not being a technical endeavor. It's not something that is simply a skill that we learn. It's also something of an art that we have to immerse ourselves in. So a little bit later in today's session, Mr. Mdanyana is going to talk about Turnitin, and he's going to take you through this in a bit more detail. I'm not going to focus on this for today. I'm going to focus instead on a slightly different approach to thinking about academic writing and to thinking about plagiarism in academic writing. And this is going to be partly for staff, and I'll try and make it more relevant to students as we go along. Students, please let me know if you want me to pause at any point and explain something further. So from a staff perspective, when you look at a Turnitin report like this, you will get this big similarity score up at the top. Students, you'll probably see this on if your staff release your Turnitin report to you, you will see this as well, okay? So this similarity score is often a score that people have questions about. And the question that I get asked most often is, what's the number? What number must this be? Or What must the number be that people are below? And I'm going to start by saying to you today that that's actually not a helpful question. This number can either be very high or very low, and that can be a good or a bad thing depending on the task that a student has been set, depending on the discipline that you're in. So this match overview, the similarity index number, is actually not, it's not a scientific number. It's not a number that we can say everybody under 25 is fine and everybody over 25 has a problem or is in trouble. Instead, what we have to do is we have to take that number and we have to look at what was the assignment that was set. We have to look at what is my discipline like, and then we have to make an assessment about whether or not that similarity index is a reasonable number. And then once we decide, yes, this is okay, or no, it is not, then what we have to do is we have to decide, what do we do with that information? If my student is okay, that's not a problem. I can allow them to continue with their work without it being an issue. If, on the other hand, I decide that, that match overview, that similarity index is too high or too low, then I have to intervene in some way. Typically, universities have not been very concerned with match indexes that are very low. Although, as I'm going to show you today, those can also be very, very problematic. If you are in a discipline like law, for example, or if you are in a discipline, in a scientific discipline, one of the science subjects, particularly a subject with a very narrow way of explaining things, what we talk about sometimes as having a very closed academic discourse, a very specific way of saying things, and that similarity index is low, then you are going to find yourself in a very difficult position, because that means that your student is actually not learning the language of the discipline. They're not using the ideas, the concepts, the phrasing that is common to the discipline. So this match overview number, critical number, but not an absolute good or bad. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second. If you think about that match overview number, are there any questions about that? Any questions about that match overview number? Yes, I see that Medicine has a hand up. Medicine?
I'm
Hi.
Medicine, coming from Economic and Business Sciences, Faculty of Commerce and Administration. Like you said, when I see the number big like this or small, I usually, if it is a dissertation or a project, I usually go to the literature review and see how many sources this the person used. And I usually also look at those common big terms like UN, like all other terms which are used, especially in the dissertations.
Yes.
I find out that most of them, they would have been picked by the Turnitin software. But however, I usually get into contradictions with my colleagues, because when they see it big, they start complaining, thinking that it's a problem of copy. But in the bid to resolve it, I have seen that most of my students' works were left spoiled, incomprehensible, and very uneasy to follow in those processes of trying to rephrase or trying to steal an idea of somebody and pack it from that bag where it was packaged into a different bag so that it cannot be seen that it was taken from this bag. So it has been a concern to me. It has been a worry which was so confusing. So thank you so much for asking this question, and I think we are going to elaborate on it so much as we proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the comment. I want to say that your strategy there, which is to go and look at what the student has actually done is really, really a very healthy and useful strategy. So as you will also see in a Turnitin report of this kind, you'll have this big match overview, which scares everybody and causes a lot of stress. And then you'll see that in the report itself, there'll be these highlighted bits. And these are the bits that Turnitin is matching to something that exists in the digital world. They are taking this little bit of text over here, and they're saying this little bit of text matches, in this case, something that was submitted to Eiffel Core is an edtech company, and it was a student paper that was submitted to them, but it's of the total number of matches, it's a very small percentage. It's only a 1% match. What that percentage means will obviously vary. If you have an 80,000 word thesis, 1% is not, 1% might actually be quite a big amount of an 80,000 word thesis. On the other hand, 1% of a 2,000 word paper is a much smaller actual number of words. So you also have to be quite careful about what these percentages are saying. So if you've got, for example, that something here is 30%, I would look at that particular case very carefully. So I would then go and click on this submitted to Eiffel Core, and it will pull up for me the comparative piece. And sometimes, and this is the critical thing for me, sometimes when you have a match, because that's all this is, it tells you this piece of text that your students submitted matches this piece of text in the database. Sometimes when you have a match, it is because students have copied, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Sometimes when you have a match, it is because students have failed to paraphrase adequately. We'll talk about that in a second. And sometimes when you have a match, it is because the discourse of the discipline only allows you to say what you want to say in a very specific way, and that is a common phrase for your discipline. And the way to deal with that latter one is to make sure that you set your Turnitin, and Lungile will talk about this, I'm sure. You set your Turnitin setting to allow up to 3 to 5 words to match perfectly. Because, for example, in my discipline, I use the phrase teaching and learning in higher education all the time. And everybody that I write with and whose work is relevant to mine also uses that phrase. And we really, really, really don't want that highlighted as a match. Okay. Are there any other questions about any of the elements on this report? So you've got your match overview, you've got your student text, and in each instance, anything that matches has a corresponding link to what Turnitin is matching it to. There is a fourth instance, sorry, colleagues, there's a fourth instance where you may have a match, and that is where your student and another student have both cited a third-party source, but Turnitin does not have access to that third-party source, i.e. it is a book text or it is behind a firewall. And so Turnitin is matching it to a student rather than to the original text they are both citing. Medicine, yes, sir.
Yeah, the other question which also come into my mind are those colors.
Yes.
Which come with a number, say number 24, number 21, and number 27, which are red, a green, a gray, whatever.
Right.
The question on what are the implications of these colors?
None, sir. So these colors are simply to allow you as a reader to quickly say, oh, okay, so for some people, the 21 is an easy link. For other people, they go purple, purple, or green, green, and that is their easy link. So the colors are just there to help make this more readable than gray text. They don't have any kind of severity implication. Yeah.
Because I've seen like the red ones, they seem to constitute a higher percentage. Sometimes you find them being red and having something like 7%.
There should not be, like, that is likely to be simply a matter of chance. The red, yellow, green is significant when it's flagged on your mark sheet. Lungile, I see you would like to jump in there, sir.
Yes, Shanali, I would like to jump in. Yeah, no, I just wanted to comment about this percentage. That sometimes it's possible that for some of us, staff within WSU, you
Yes.
find out that you are using WSU Turnitin.
Yes.
At the same time, on the same document, you are using the UCT Turnitin. So you find out that you are getting different similarity index scores.
Right.
Yes, but it's the exact same document. So I was going to say that there it's the issue of settings.
Yes.
You find out that in these institutions they use different Turnitin settings.
Different
so
default
you
settings.
find out that at WSU we were using another setting, and then at UCT they were using another one. Then you would get different similarity index percentages. It's I just wanted to highlight that, Shanali.
Thank you. The other thing, folks, and this is a heads up to all students and staff, please do not ever submit a paper at a friend's institution or at a colleague's institution to their Turnitin because you want to check it out before you send it to your lecturer. Okay, so this is mostly for students. Never ever submit to another institution because you just want to test it before you submit it to your lecturer. You will end up with 100% match overview. Okay, that will cause you massive problems because you will then need to prove, let's say you have a friend at a different university, you've maybe got a friend at WITS, you've got a friend at UKZN or at UCT, and you say to them, oh, can you just, and they've got an open assignment, and you say to them, can you just submit this to me for me so that I can check it out? Please don't do that. Rather talk to your lecturer about giving you the opportunity to submit and resubmit. Staff, give your students an opportunity to submit and resubmit so that they're not tempted to send it elsewhere. That causes endless problems. Okay, so the next little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit to staff, and then I'll flag again when I'm speaking specifically to students. So we have, what I've done over the next few slides is I've tried to figure out what our response needs to be to a particular similarity index. So I'm going to, in each case, show you a similarity index and say it was either very high, very low, or somewhere in between. And then we have three choices of intervention. In some instances, there's a punitive intervention, i.e. somebody has done something problematic, really, really wrong. And we need to discipline them in some way for that. In some cases, there's a technical intervention, what Lungile was talking about in terms of changing settings or changing the format of a document in order for it to reflect correctly in the system. And what I'm going to focus on today actually is developmental interventions, things that we need to change in terms of our teaching and learning practice in order to support student learning. So we're going to look at, I think I have 4 examples, and for each of those examples, we're going to decide what is the person doing and how do I respond to what they're doing. So the first case that I want to bring in front of you is the case of deliberate academic dishonesty, so deliberate copying. And historically, what that's looked like is that students have copied from each other. You have a friend who's very good at a particular course, or somebody has done the course in the previous year, and you get hold of their tutorials or you get hold of their essay, and you copy it or you copy parts of it, okay? And that is what historically this deliberate copying has looked like. There's a whole other slightly more problematic form of copying that's happening in the current context, and that is that in some contexts, students actually pay other people to write for them. And so that is again an instance of deliberate copying, deliberate academic dishonesty, deliberately passing off somebody else's work as your own. Okay, so that's the first case I want to talk about today. And what I want to start by doing is to say that I would call that malicious plagiarism. That for me is a deliberate and malicious attempt to pass off somebody else's work as yours, to lie about the authorship of the work. I believe that in many instances, while I am sympathetic to the pressures that students face, simply paying somebody else to do the work for you, or threatening somebody else to do the work for a student, or stealing somebody's tut out of the tut box and copying it, none of those are behaviors that we should accept, regardless of the consequence, regardless of the circumstances that prompted them. What I do believe we should do as staff is we must make sure that students have had access to sufficient support such that we can say that we have done everything possible to make it unnecessary for students to behave in this way. But when students do behave in that way, i.e. deliberately pass off a fellow student or a contracted writer's work as their own, I believe that's an act of malicious plagiarism, and it should be penalized accordingly. Different universities and different institutions have different forms of penalty for that. In some cases, it's an automatic exclusion in some cases, it's an automatic 0 on that particular task. In some cases, it leads to academic exclusion. In some instances, it leads to some kind of requirement to retake the course. So there is a wide range of punitive responses to malicious plagiarism. That said, in the South African context, while we have some problems with malicious plagiarism, I believe that our bigger problems relate to various challenges that our students face around being poorly prepared for the kind of teaching and learning that happens at universities, the challenges of learning in second or third, and in some instances, even foreign language contexts. So what I'm going to do over the next few slides is I'm going to give you some examples, and I'm going to ask you to tell me what you think is happening here. So on the left-hand side, I have an example of the original text. And on the right-hand side, I have an example of what the students submitted. Can I ask you to have a look at that and tell me, what do you think is happening in this particular instance? So on the left-hand side is the original text. On the right-hand side is what a student has submitted. What do you think is happening? And I think that I heard a mic
Can
go
I
on.
say something?
Yes, go for it.
Yes, Chanel. It looks like the student has simply changed some words.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Exactly
So it's basically the same, but he has just changed the words, found synonyms, and has not acknowledged. So that is still plagiarism.
Okay, so what we have here is what I think of as the Shift F7 challenge that we have with our students. So this student took a whole lot of words and simply replaced them. They deleted a couple of words. They basically just offered synonyms, exactly as Rambazai has said. Okay, what is going on with this student? In all likelihood, this particular writer has vocabulary limitations in the language of learning and teaching. They do not understand that there is a difference between creating an awareness and creating a perception. They do not understand perhaps that there is a clear difference between showing someone something and teaching them something. Okay, So this person has vocabulary limitations. Again, as Rambudzai pointed out, what they have done is they have used exactly the same sentence structure. Okay, they have just changed very specific words. What else have they not done? They have not incorporated multiple sources. This is a single text that they have looked at and that they have rewritten, replacing specific words. They also have not cited the author at all. Okay, so in the case of this particular student, we'll talk about how to intervene with them in just a second. I want to show you a slight difference here. In this instance, all the student has done is they have acknowledged their source. Okay, they have not acknowledged in any way that they have changed specific words. They have decided that this is paraphrased. All that they have done is they have simply acknowledged their source. So now what do we do with these two students who've got version 1 and version 2 of the F7 problem, Shift F7 problem? The first thing is that we don't see them as malicious plagiarism. Okay, this is not somebody who is trying to pass off somebody else's work as their own, in all likelihood. In all likelihood, this is probably somebody who is having difficulties with the vocabulary of their discipline. So they are having a poor academic writing problem, or a poor academic discourse problem, or poor academic literacies problem, as opposed to a malicious plagiarism problem. In some cases, in terms of the Turnitin rating, a text like the two that we have just seen will rate very high. Okay, Turnitin will often pick that up quite easily. If the student is writing grammatically correctly. If, on the other hand, the student is making grammatical errors in their swapping out, in their paraphrasing, if they're making lots of grammatical errors, you may actually get a very low Turnitin score, because Turnitin doesn't recognize sufficient similarity between the original text and the student's text, depending on what it is going wrong. And what do these two students require? Ultimately, whether it is a student who is changing words, going Shift F7 and changing keywords and referencing, or whether it is a student who is doing Shift F7 and not referencing, they ultimately require writing support to understand how to write in a slightly more, how to, for example, incorporate different sources, or how to, for example, change the structures of sentences to demonstrate that you have fully understood them. Okay, so our first case, remember, was the case of malicious plagiarism. Our second case was the case of a student who is not fully fluent in the language of learning and teaching, and is therefore using other resources like a thesaurus or Shift F7 on their MS Word or something like that in order to look for words that have the same meaning. Okay, let's take another example. This is a slightly different case. Folks, can you spot the difference? What is happening here? So on the left-hand side, we have the two original texts again. On the right-hand side, we have what the student has submitted. I would love to hear, what do you think is happening here? I see a hand. Glolisi. Yes.
In my view, without even going to check both texts, what I see here, the student first read the original work, understood what was there, then tried to summarize in his or her understanding with references or citations.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to say a little more?
No, I do not want to add on.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ngoyini, do you have a hand up, sir?
Yes, I see direct quotes altogether because another. No paraphrasing at all, because you can see all the three, it's all direct quotes.
Okay, so let's look at a slightly different version of this, and I'd like to pull together what our two authors have said. So what is important for me here is that actually the paragraph that the student produced is not, in terms of ideas, is not a terrible response. They have put the ideas together in a good way. It makes sense if you read it, but what have they done? In fact, they have mostly actually cited. So we know that this quote comes from this person, this quote comes from this person. They failed to cite over here. They did not tell us where this comes from, although this comes from the Bukowski and Gui article. And in this instance, they cited the first part, but they've left this paraphrasing idea uncited, okay? So mostly they cited. They've done a really good thing in terms of academic writing. They have related two sources to each other. That's a good thing. But again, this is somebody who is struggling in maybe two ways. They are probably struggling to decide how to say this in their own words. And so they are simply using the words of someone else. I think Medicine said earlier, they're unpacking it from one bag and trying to, they've decided that that other person's bag was perfect. And so they're just going to use that bag. They're just going to use that the way that person has said it. And so that may be because they're struggling a little bit with vocabulary. It may be because they are struggling not at the level of argument, but they're struggling at the level of sentence structure. So they're just keeping the sentences as exactly as is because they make sense. And I think for a person like this, the question you want to help this writer with is, how do these ideas relate to each other? And what do you want to say about them? Okay, so this writer is somebody who really lacks confidence in their own voice. They're leaning very strongly on the voices of others, but conceptually, they have a very good idea. So how do we support this writer? This writer is having academic literacy difficulties. Okay, their similarity index is going to be very, very high because Turnitin will match those things even though they are correctly cited. They require some writing support. They need to think about, what is my point as a writer? What is my point in relation to this source? How do these two sources relate to each other? And then they need to ask themselves, can I say this in my own words? And for the students in the room, my rule for quoting people is, if you're going to quote directly, if you're going to put it in inverted commas, word for word, exactly the same, then you should ask yourself, is this a beautiful piece of writing? Is this like an absolutely crystal clear, truly lovely piece of writing? Or is it a perfect definition, like exactly right? And if it's exactly right, then quote it, use your inverted commas, put your citation in, your in-text citation in, and that will be fine. But not everything is the perfect piece of writing. A lot of writing is just bread and butter writing. And so you can say it in your own words. Okay? So we've had three cases. Our deliberate case of deliberate malicious plagiarism, our students who are doing the Shift F7 problem, and in this case, our student who's patchworking. Let's look at our next case. Our next case is actually what is acceptable academic writing. Okay, and things we know. We know that it must have a positional argument, it must draw on multiple sources, it should paraphrase accurately and appropriately, quote sparingly and correctly, and it must cite its sources. And that student's on the correct path. We don't really need to stress too hard about them. We need to just simply ask ourselves, when we look at their similarity index, is the similarity index task appropriate? Did I ask them to summarize an article and therefore the similarity index is quite high? Or did I ask them to apply a key concept to a very new context, and therefore the similarity index is quite low? And they may still require a little bit of writing support in that way. And then our last case for today is the case of what I call two cases really. There's a false negative case and there's a technical error case. Sometimes you will have a student, as I said earlier, with a very, very low similarity score. But the reason that they have a very low similarity score is either because they have bought their text from somebody. They've paid a friend to write it for them. They've bullied someone into writing it for them, or they have gone to a text mill, one of those companies that writes texts for students. And in the case of that student, the low similarity score is actually a false negative, and they should face some kind of disciplinary action. Sometimes what students will do is they will do tricky things. They will mask text. They will replace letters in the text with images that look like the letters but aren't, that are actually in there as images. It's a lot of work to fake text in that way, but it does mean that you can take somebody else's text, change all the O's for little shapes that look like O's, and then submit it, and it won't come up on Turnitin. And again, those to me are both acts of deliberate attempts to pass off somebody else's work as your own, and should be addressed accordingly. And then we have the technical errors. Sometimes you get a really high score, but as Lungile indicated earlier, it's a technical error of some kind. Sometimes that means you need to change the settings on the assignment. Maybe it's comparing it to a previous course where the student wrote the proposal for this project, and now they are writing the final report for this project, and there's a lot of overlap because they wrote the literature review and the methods in the proposal section. Maybe they were desperate and they sent their paper off to a friend to submit at UCT, because we ask our staff to give all our students multiple submission options. And so they sent it off to a friend to check it out before they sent it to you. And so now they have a duplicate that's 100% that sits somewhere out there in the world. And those are technical errors that need to not so much be punished, but just the technical error needs to be addressed. Okay, how do you deal with those kinds of things? One of the things that you can do is you can exclude specific sources. And that is a very useful thing, in fact, to do. I will send the links to these slides to you after this, so that you can click on some of these and see how to do those things directly. And then finally, moving forward, things I want to say to you before I hand back to Lungile is, number one, not all high scores are the same problem. Similarly, not all low scores are the same problem. Deliberate and malicious cheating is very different from not understanding the conventions of academic writing. The way that our students are taught to write from grade 1 to grade 12 is a kind of repetitive form of writing. It is a form where if you say what the teacher said, you will get a good mark. And so the conventions of university, where you are no longer simply allowed to repeat the experts, is a change of learning and teaching culture. And so what we should really be focusing on is teaching writing for our disciplines through reading text together with students, weirdly in the way that we've been doing today, where we show them what's going on in the text. Make our expectations explicit. When we say to students paraphrase or restructure or integrate, what do we actually mean? Distinguish for our students between when they are struggling with language issues and when they are struggling with citation issues, because citation as a concept is something that everyone can get correct quickly. Getting the language right takes a little bit longer. And then we should be trying to create opportunities for our students to practice paraphrasing in low-risk contexts where that's possible. And I'm going to pause there. I see that Rambatzai has a hand up, and I would love to take your question. And I think that's where I will stop. That point.
Thank you, Shanali.
Hi.
Not a question as such, but I just wanted to comment maybe on the moving forward.
Yes.
I noticed that you have listed, first of all, let me say, I do agree with you absolutely that there is need for us to teach writing.
Yes.
And to teach academic writing discourse in our disciplines. And I agree with the steps that you have put there. I wish we could include bullet number 5.
Yes.
To what you have already said. Yes. To say that this is probably where the a service like the Writing Center comes in. That academics need to appreciate that academic discourse is not something is something that needs to be taught. They need to be taught how to paraphrase. They need to be taught how to summarize, and also the conventions of quoting, and even the critical reading skills. So maybe departments need to collaborate with both the library and the writing center, so that we start them at the first year level when they come into university, and we introduce them to academic writing conventions. And not assume that, you know, just because they pass matric, then they can write.
I mean, if I were to say, so absolutely, like if there are resources available to you, writing centers, library staff, bring those people into your course. Students, because it seems like we got a fair number of students in the room. If your lecturer doesn't bring those things into your course, go and find them yourself. You know, you can find out where on your campus your writing center is. Make an appointment. Take them a piece of writing. Make it something that you do for yourself from the beginning of your degree, so that each year you grow and develop, rather than trying to fix it like once off. I believe Yusuf has a hand up. Yusuf Luckman? Would you like to unmute?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. What I understand on based on your presentation is that the setting is customizable.
Yes.
Setting. So when I look at the options I have here on the settings, there are about 2 to 3 options that have direct impact or can influence the similarity index of the work. Exactly. One is the point value, and number 2 is the word count, number 3 the percentage, where we set source exclusion thresholds. So I would like to know if there is any standard when I'm setting assignment or when I am setting my Turnitin. Is there any standard that is accepted?
There is no shared common practice.
Because, because there is a way it could be set in such a way that when you check, the similarity index will be very high. And the same document, if you reset it, the same work will give a very low similarity index or 0 similarity index. So based on that, I had been asking and I didn't get any question, any answer. So please, I would like before end of this session to get
have
something.
some kind of answer for that. You're not going to like my answer, Yusuf, because my answer is going to say it depends on what you teach. And it depends on what the assignment is. So just help me, what department are you joining us from again?
From administration and hospitality.
Administration and hospitality.
Faculty of Commerce and Administration.
Okay, so let's say you set an assignment for your students where they have to read an article and or read a set of guidelines. Maybe in hospitality, there might be some guidelines for a particular, for like food and beverages. So maybe they must read that and then they must summarize it. That's going to have a very high similarity score unless you set that percentages or number of words to be quite high. Okay, because there are going to be some things that come up time and time again. Like they're in that policy document, they're going to be phrases, they're going to be instructions that you can only say in that way. Something like along the lines of food must be stored at temperatures between this and this. You know, or the cold chain from this point to this point must not be broken, or whatever it is. And that would be very different than if you were setting your students an assignment where you were to say to them, think about a strategy for marketing a particular Airbnb in Butterworth versus thinking about a strategy for marketing an Airbnb in Port Elizabeth. Okay, so those are 2 very different assignments. And then you have to decide, do I set What do I exclude? Are there particular articles or texts I want to exclude for each of those? And then furthermore, what percentage do I want to accept? Am I going to accept up to 1% as unproblematic? Am I going to accept 3 to 5 words? And that will be different assignment to assignment, even within your course, which makes it really, really difficult. And that would be even more difficult than if I were to compare your discipline to, say, medicine, where they have a lot of, like, if you think about like how doctors express a diagnosis, for example, they want you to say it in exactly the right way. They don't want you to use your own words. If someone has chronic kidney disease, you must say chronic kidney disease. You cannot say they have a kidney problem. It's not the same thing. Colleagues, I see a cluster of hands up. But I also need to just check in. Lungile, do I have time to take the hands, or do I need to hand to you?
Occasionally, just take them maybe up to 11, 15.
Okay, let me go as fast as I can then. First hand up, I think, is Mbuyiselo. Mbuyiselo, I believe Mbuyiselo Douglas.
Oh,
Are you in the room?
thank you so much, Shanali.
Greetings.
Actually, I'm interested actually to comment on the writing skills related to the assistance by writing center and library. My challenge is one speaker said it would be highly advantageous for students to start at the first year level when they start their academic learning and teaching at the university. So now I just want to find out, is it not maybe possible to orientate students on their arrival that they need to visit these centers? I'm at Mthatha campus, but I'm teaching research theory at a third year level. Just now I've experienced that the students, they've got very poor writing skills, and then even with referencing, they don't understand what we mean by Harvard style of referencing. And then you as a lecturer now will find out sometimes they become shy because they work in groups. And then when you comment, you find out on doing the corrections, it's still the same thing. The student doesn't understand the writing skills and referencing. So I'm just emphasizing the issue of how can we actually motivate them, because they're writing other assignments, even at the first year level, at the second year level. So now when it comes to a research project now, at least we are expecting them to be knowledgeable.
Yeah, I think the challenge in many ways is I expect that many orientation programs do something on academic writing and alert students to the existence of writing centers, to library services, and so on. But like many things that happen in orientation, that first 2 weeks for students is a very overwhelming process. There is a lot going on, and a lot of our students are having a first in their life experience. They are away from home for the first time. They are surrounded only by young people of their age for the first time. When students come to UCT, sometimes it is the first time that they have had to deal with somebody very closely who's of a different race, who speaks a different language from them. In some campuses, I imagine at WSU, maybe there are similar experiences that students have, where this is the first time they're dealing with somebody who has a different accent. It's the first time where their mom isn't watching them and saying, you have to be home by this time. What is happening? And so they are having all sorts of experiences that are new. And a lot of the things that we say to our students during the orientation process gets lost, gets forgotten. And so I would say that one of the things that we have to keep doing as lecturers is we have to accept that some of the burden of teaching our expectations about, for example, the Harvard system for your course, is something that we have to actively teach in the course, because in another course that students using Chicago or Vancouver or MLA, guaranteed. And so we have to be very clear with them. What do we want you to use? And what does that look like? And if we don't value it in the writing, if we don't signal for our students that actually there's a cost to not doing it this way, it will become a burden that they will not pick up. So there is a bit of a challenge there for us, both institutionally and across, like at an institutional planning level. How do we keep giving students reminders about this, but also within our courses? And some of it, unfortunately, we carry as individual staff. Jeffrey, I see a hand up. Sorry, folks, I'm just going in the order that the names are up. Jeffrey? Jeffrey Arns, are you still in the room? Can you unmute?
Thank you.
There you are.
Shanali, good mornings.
Good morning.
Can you tell me what is your take on paraphrasing? These paraphrasing tools that they are using.
Say a little bit more for me. I just want to understand your question better.
What is your take on the paraphrasing tools that people are using?
What kind of paraphrasing tools are you talking about?
I mean, there are a lot of paraphrasing tools on the internet that people are using.
Right. Okay. So my first suggestion is that when you use a paraphrasing tool on the internet, you are forgetting who your audience is. In an academic context, we use words in very specific ways. In the real world, I can say, I am under pressure or I am under stress, and I mean the same thing. The word pressure, stress, they carry a similar meaning. If I'm an engineering student and I say this thing is under stress or this thing is under pressure, they have very different meanings. And when people use paraphrasing tools, the paraphrasing tool does not understand the context that you are writing for. It does not understand that you are a student in an academic context where the difference between pressure and stress is a significant and meaningful difference. And so it will give you either word. And then you have a student who says something like, the beam was under pressure. No, the beam was not under pressure. The beam was stress. There was stress on the beam. And so I strongly discourage my students from using paraphrasing tools online, because what paraphrasing tools do is they imagine an ordinary, everyday, common usage. Like if I walk in the shop and ask somebody for something, they imagine that. They imagine me like everyday usage. They don't imagine a technical academic usage. So
Yeah,
I discourage.
I think I've got a serious problem with it as well, because you find that some academics even are encouraging, especially third language students, to use paraphrasing tools. And I think academically speaking, that is uncalled for, and it is killing intellectualism and creativity, and originality. For me, it's a problem if you are just going to paraphrase someone else's work. That is not there. We don't encourage originality when we do that.
So, right at the beginning, I said that there was this tension between plagiarism and originality, because part of what you do when you help a student learn a discipline is you also help them to learn a set of ideas and a set of language for explaining the world differently. And so when an engineer, for example, I'm going to go back to my engineering example. When an engineer talks about stress, he's not talking about the feeling inside a human being, perhaps. He's talking about the material, how materials respond in a particular way. He needs to, like that engineering student, he, she, they need to learn that discipline-specific meaning. When I talk about, in my discipline, when I talk about For example, I use a particular term when I talk about cultural capital. I need my student to learn that term, and I need them to understand what that means. So I would not label something like paraphrasing tools so much as academic. I wouldn't describe it as plagiarism. I would describe it as poor academic practice and a lost opportunity to learn. And I'm going to stop there, I think. I see there are questions in the text chat. Colleagues, I will happily take more questions in the text chat. But I must at this point hand over to Lungile, who's going to show you something of what the system looks like, but also how to set and constrain your particular Turnitin instance so that it does what you need it to. If you have any more questions for me, please type them into the text chat and I will respond to you directly there. Lungile, may I hand back to you?
Okay, thank you, Shanali.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Oh, okay, that's great. And can you, okay, let me share again. Thank you so much, Shanali, for that insightful presentation. We we have learned a lot from what you have just shared. Colleagues, I will be very technical. I will be taking you through Wise Up. So we will be creating a Turnitin assignment. So the first part will be focusing more on academic stuff. And then after that, I will then switch from the instructor role to the student role, showing the students how to submit a Turnitin assignment and how to download that assignment and interpret the Similarity Index report. So I'll do that. But before I go there, we have got this plagiarism policy here. You can see on this page, page number 13, we will be sharing these documents. Its roles and responsibilities. It first starts with academic staff, that academic staff members are responsible for creating awareness and for putting preventive measures in place. So all lecturers must be able to use and apply programs used to detect plagiarism. Hence, we are having workshops of this nature. Departmental heads must report acts of plagiarism to the deans and faculties, and the deans will ensure that plagiarism policy and the procedures are duly implemented. So this one focuses more on the WSU context. Supervisors of postgraduate students and their research work are expected to follow the university policies. Yes, and then the students, during the first 2 years of study, students must follow orientation and awareness programs to educate themselves about plagiarism. And then I like the second one, 6.2.2. All postgraduate students should follow the procedure to check scholarly work for possible plagiarism, whereafter a plagiarism declaration form must be completed. So all the students at postgraduate level, they are supposed to check their work for plagiarism. So we cannot allow students at a postgraduate level to submit their dissertations without them passing through Turnitin. Academic support, then the research office, the library, and the DLT will cooperate to ensure availability of orientation sessions and programs, as well as software licensing and maintenance of approved detection programs. Academic development should encompass training for academics on how to use the software or detect academic writing malpractices. So yeah, as we have collaborated here with DLT, so we should continue to collaborate also with the research office to ensure that we bring to the institution the workshops and the webinars of this nature. So I'm gonna move on now to Wise Up. First part will be focusing more on academics, on how they can create a Turnitin assignment on Moodle. So step number one, colleagues, you just need to log in onto WiseUp using your login credentials. And then step number 2, you need to open the course where you will be setting that assignment. So from my courses, I will be using this one, Pedagogy of Online Assessment course. So I'll be using this course to create a Turnitin assignment. And then once you are here on your course, there is a settings button here on the top right corner of the window. You need to click on the drop down arrow and make sure that you turn editing on, because you won't be able to add anything on your course unless editing is on. Okay, so I'm gonna focus on day number 1, introduction to online assessments. And then there I'm gonna create a Turnitin assignment. So to do that, I need to click on this button, add an activity or resource. So I'm gonna click there once. Then after I click on add activity or resource, then this is the menu that will pop up. On this menu, you can see that the first option there is assignment. So each and every time when you click on an option, you will get the description on the right-hand side of the screen. So this one is just a normal assignment where students will be submitting their assignments without passing them through Turnitin. So you don't have to create this type of assignment if you want to include a Turnitin report on the assignment that you are creating. So what you need to do, you need to click here on Turnitin assignment 2. So once you click there on Turnitin assignment 2, you will find out the description that this creates a Turnitin Moodle direct assignment, which links an activity in Moodle to an assignment or assignments on Turnitin. So previously we used to use Turnitin as a standalone tool, but since last year we have integrated Turnitin and Moodle. So that makes things easy. So now you can be able to create a Turnitin assignment within Moodle, and students can be able to upload on Moodle and then download and interpret their Turnitin reports. So this is the option that you need to select, and then you click on the button add. From there, it's going to take you to this page where you will be filling in this form. So you need to give this assignment a name. I'm gonna give it a name and say proposal. Let's say proposal for BTech. Let's say BTech IT. Okay, fine. And then from there, you just need to give it a name. So this one, I'm creating this assignment for BTech IT students, for them to be able to submit their proposals and check them for the Similarity Index report. And then the following step is a summary. So you can give a summary of this assignment or a description of this assignment. So you can write it here. It is not a required field. So you can either leave it blank, or if you want to write something, you can give that description. Okay, and then you can display the description on the course page. If you have got this description, you can simply click on the checkbox and then it will be displayed on the course page. Now we move on to the third part, which is submission type. So you need to select the submission type. Are the students going to submit file uploads, or are they going to submit text submission? So the text submission is whereby students will just be using the text editor to write their responses, and I will not encourage that. I would encourage that students to use Microsoft Word to write their assignments and then upload them as files. So we're gonna leave it here on file upload. Then this option is the number of parts. How many parts does this activity have? So you may decide to leave it on 1, or you may decide to have 5 parts. You may decide to have more than 1 part. Let's say, for example, your students are writing a dissertation and you want them to have 5 chapters. So you can have a number of parts, maybe you can have 5 of them, and then they submit the first chapter as part 1, they submit the second chapter as part 2, up to part number 5. But if they are going to submit a proposal, you can maybe just leave it as 1 part. Then the following part is maximum file size. So you need to select here the maximum file size. So here is 100 megabytes. You can change it, it's up to your choice, but I would leave it as 100 megabytes. Allow submission of any file type. Okay. Do you want to allow students to submit any file types? So if you want to do so, you can leave it on no. You want, okay, you can leave it, you can change this to yes. So it means now that students can even submit the image file types if you want them to submit any file type. But by default, it's on no, so let's just leave it there. Display similarity reports to students. Do you want students to have a preview on their similarity reports? Yes, you should allow students to have a preview on their similarity reports, because if you change it to no, students won't have access to their similarity report. But the whole idea here is that you want them to have many attempts. You want them to submit, firstly, their first draft, and then they have the Turnitin report. They go and edit the document, they submit again, and then they have the similarity index report. So you should leave it on yes. Grade display. So when we are displaying grades to students, do you want to show them as fraction or as percentage? So this focuses more on grades, not on the similarity report index, colleagues. So remember that when we are having grades, or when we are posting grades, if your assignment is out of 70, you can either choose to display those grades as fraction. So if the assignment was out of 70 and then the student got 60 or 65, then that's how the grades will be displayed. But if you choose percentage, it will be displayed as a percentage. Then we move to auto refresh grades or scores. So by default, it's on yes. You can change it to no. But what happens here is that since Turnitin and WiseUp are integrated, so if something changes here on WiseUp, automatically it's going to change even on the Turnitin side. So I would leave it as yes, automatically refresh similarity scores and grades. Then below, if you want to set these values as assignment defaults, let's say on all of your assignments, okay?
I'm sorry, Lungile.
Okay.
There is a complaint that your screen is not visible. Is it possible to enlarge it a little bit, please?
The screen is not visible.
Yes.
Okay. How is it?
I can see it on my side. Can you push it a little bit bigger?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine now.
Is it fine? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy then. So you can then, if you decide that you want to set these assignment values as default, so you can choose, you can just click on this checkbox, and then all of the assignments that you are creating will then by default take these settings. So, okay, I'm gonna uncheck that, but if you want to have all your assignments following the same default values, You must make sure that this is checked. And then assignment parts. Remember that we were having one part on this one. So if we were having two parts, then we will be having different dates for those two parts. But since we are having one, now you need to select the start date of this assignment. So by default, it's going to take the current date and the current time. So the due date of the assignment is going to be a week after this start date. So you can change that. If you want to change it to June, maybe you want to change it to the month end of June, you can simply do that. It's 30, and then you select June. Then that will be the due date of the assignment. And then the time, we normally encourage end of the day, which is 23:59, so that you can give allowance to students to be able to work on the assignment and finalize. So it's 30 June 23:59. Then the post date is the date where you want the marks to be posted to the students. So automatically it has this date, so you can change. Remember that the post date cannot be before the due date. The post date needs to be after the due date. So I'm going to select July. Let's say 7th of July. And then it's going to be, let's say 10 a.m. if I want these marks to be displayed at 10 a.m. or at 10:30. So this means now that when you are grading the students won't be able to have access to their marks, even if you are done with student A, but that student won't be able to have access to their marks until this date. So you need to decide what is your post date. So it's the date where the students will be able to preview their marks. And then the maximum marks of the assignment, you can change them. Maybe let's say it's going to be 80. Then we move on to the similarity report options. There is an arrow on the left. You need to click on this arrow so that you can open and see all these settings. So the first option, would you want to allow submissions after the due date? If you want to allow submissions after the due date, then you will click yes. But if you don't, you will leave it on no. Then the report generation speed. The report generation speed is the speed in which the Turnitin report will be generated. So there are options on the right-hand side. If you click on that drop-down arrow, the first option is that you can generate reports immediately. Students cannot resubmit. So if you are selecting this option, it means when students are submitting their papers, when they're submitting their assignment, a Turnitin report will be generated immediately. It normally takes maybe 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the file size of the document. So, and on the number of pages. So you can generate this report immediately and students cannot resubmit. I wouldn't recommend this option because the purpose of using Turnitin is that you want the students to preview the assignment, you want them to preview the similarity index report so that they can edit the document and then resubmit again. The second option is generate reports immediately. Students can resubmit until due date. After 3 submissions, reports generate after 24 hours. So with this option, students can submit assignments and then the reports will be generated immediately. But now with this option, students can still resubmit until the due date, meaning that they can still edit and work on their assignments until the due date. Then one thing that students, they need to note is that after 3 submissions, so you will submit for the first time and then the report will just take 3 to 5 minutes, you get it. You submit again and then again it takes 3 to 5 minutes. But after you have submitted, resubmitted for the 3rd time, then your report can generate after 24 hours. So it means then now you need to wait for your report. The third option, generate reports on due date. Students can resubmit until due date. So there, what's the point of generating a report on due date? So it means now that even if the student submit a week after the assignment has been posted, they have to wait until the due date in order for them to get the Turnitin report. That won't assist the students. So the best option for me is option number 2, where you generate reports immediately and you allow students to resubmit until the due date. So I'm going to select that option. And then below, store student papers. Okay, so this is very important for you to note as an instructor, because if you leave it as it is, then the student papers will be submitted on the standard repository. And then when the students are resubmitting their work, then they will get 100% similarity index report, because the paper has been stored on the standard repository. Okay, so when you are creating an assignment on Turnitin, every time you see this question mark, every time you see this question mark next to an option, if you click there, it's gonna give you a description of what is happening. Okay, so if you look at this description, if you select no repository, then Turnitin is instructed not to store submitted documents to any repository. We will only process the paper to perform the initial similarity check. And then if you store it on standard repository, then this will store the copy of the submitted document in the standard repository. By choosing this option, Turnitin is instructed to only use stored documents to make similarity checks against any documents submitted in the future. So the copy will be uploaded on the standard repository. So when someone is resubmitting again their work, then it will be like they have plagiarized, because the similarity index report will then increase. I don't know if my colleagues from the library, if there is anyone who wants to say something before we continue on these similarity report options, or are there any questions? Ms. Mkabile, you will assist me if you see any hands raised, because I'm on WhatsApp.
Ms. Ketiwe's hand is up, Mr. Mtanyane, and followed by Mandy.
Okay. Okay. Colleagues, you can unmute and proceed.
Hi, everyone. This is Ketiwe speaking, MA student. I have a question that I think it's something that we can explain. When we were submitting on Turnitin for research proposal, what I discovered is that okay, as we are 6 students who are working on esophageal cancer, if we submit differently, there is a possibility that whenever you're getting a report, they're gonna say, they're gonna say the similarities are increased because the word that we're using have been used by 6 students or 5 students. Is it possible for us to submit in bulk and turn it in if we are working on the same topic? Because there are many times where we try to submit and they're gonna say similarities have increased, only to find out about there are people who are working on the same topic, like esophageal cancer, even though it differs. Maybe some is working on the challenges, someone is working on the treatment. But what I've noticed is that it will increase the similarities. Is it possible as 6 students to submit once? Thank you.
Okay, so you're asking that you want a situation where students will be submitting in bulk, so submitting, all of them submitting their work at the same time. Is that what you are asking for?
Yes, because we're working on esophageal topic, and all of us are using this esophageal cancer, esophageal. And when you submit alone, it says similarities have increased because this word has been used by a lot of people, only to find out about, no, your work is not the same as that person, but because you're using the same word, esophageal cancer, it keeps on increasing the similarities. So because we're using on the, like we're working on the same topic, I would like us to submit our research proposal in turning in once, but I don't know in terms of the report, is it going to give us the same report? That's my worry.
Okay, point captured. There is my colleague with the hand up, Mr. Ngoyin. I think he wants to respond to that.
Can I take that before Mr. Ngoyin? I think his hand was already up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as Mr. Mtanyane was demonstrating, it's a pity because he has removed the screen now. There is an option where the lecturer can decide whether how many words that they can be ignored in the similarity. Because you will find that, I don't know if you can scroll there, Mr. Mtanyane.
Okay.
Where they can, the lecturer can decide while setting the assignment that the similarity index excludes, yeah. For instance, you see where it says exclude quoted material, meaning that you might quote similar references. So if it clicks yes, then it means it will be ignored. Also, there is that option where a lecturer can choose to exclude small similarities, small matches. For instance, matches like the very words that you are mentioning could be included there. But I am not sure, Mr. Mtanyane, whether it's possible on WiseUp to indicate the exact words, other than just choose the number.
Yes, Mr. Mkabile, in this option, so they can choose to exclude small matches, choosing words. So if there are 5 words, consecutive words, that are following each other, then Turnitin won't interpret that as someone who has copied. So it really depends on the lecturer on how many small matches do they choose to select. So you were correct. And also the quoted materials, as you said. So if they want to exclude the quoted material, then the quoted material won't increase the similarity index percentage. And if they choose to exclude the bibliography as well, that also won't increase the percentage. But if they choose not to exclude, then that will add to that percentage. And then that will need now the lecturer then to check and see where is this report coming from, this high percentage. If it's coming from the bibliography, then they will then understand that it is their settings. They have included the bibliography. So it is very important really that the lecturers, when they are working on these settings, they engage the library staff and the DLT and the whole department to decide and have a conversations around this. That do we check against stored student papers? I think that one is important. You need to check against the stored student papers. Do we check against internet? Yes, that is important because we don't want a situation where a student will just copy and paste from the internet. Do we want to check against journals, periodicals, and publications? Yes, we do want to do that. So all of these settings, I think they should remain like this. And then you need to decide on the exclude small matches number, which number do you want which number do you want to implement? as a lecturer, or maybe if there's any guidance on the department, then you can decide on that. But I would like my colleagues from the library, Ms. Mkabile, to chip in as well.
Yes, I think I will hand over to Mr. Ngoyini, but we do have about 3 colleagues whose hands are up. Colleagues, please, we will take only those 3 colleagues. We don't have much time. Then we can then proceed. We will then allow the discussion again after Mr. Mtanyani's presentation. Mr. Ngoyini.
Thanks, Mr. Mtanyana. Although I don't have a straight answer on this issue, on this part, I think this is similar to what I had in mind, what I wanted also to share here. I think this challenge is similar to postgraduate students when they are writing research proposals or their first chapters of their thesis. You'll notice that there's a certain structure in place for a proposal with similar headings. Turnitin will normally look at the similarity on those particular headings, but I think it is upon the supervisor or the lecturer to ignore such instances, because that is a standard structure to write that particular assignment. I think also in this case of KTO, I think also the lecturer will know that this is a certain language that is being used, or the terminology that is being used in that particular subject. Also, Mr. Mtanyane, I wanted to, on those settings, I think you have moved away from that screen. I think what students, when you said that there's an option to exclude quotes, exclude quoted material, okay? What has been also discovered, I think the academic staff have need to be careful in this one, where students, I think Chanali has indicated as trying to think in those categories of dishonesty, where students will quote a certain passage and change the font color of the quotation marks to white so that Turnitin will not pick up. Sorry, that the lecturer will not pick up, but it will come on Turnitin as it has been quoted. So there's some of the issues that also the academic staff they need to be careful about when working on Turnitin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ngoyin. Perhaps there's also Ms. Bambani.
Yes, can you allow me to follow the order? Mandi, Ruby, Nelly, and then Pumeza.
Thank you very much, Buli. I just want to know that when you do this setting, when a student submits to Turnitin, do they have to submit the document, or can they check the similarity without submission? I'll tell you why I'm asking this. When I Turnitined my thesis, I didn't have to submit it. So I just got my report without submitting my thesis. And then, so if the students have got the same access, they can check, and then when they are satisfied with the index, then they can submit only once. And yeah, so those options for students, are they there for them when they submit, that they can just check the index and not submit? Secondly, I find that the cover pages on some of these things raise the similarity index. Is there no way of excluding the cover page when the similarity index is getting checked on Turnitin? And such things as headings and so on, maybe, which would mean that the students would have to format their documents properly where the headings are headings and so on. Is there any way in which some of these things can be excluded, particularly for assignments that they will have a cover page that is similar for everybody? Even for a thesis or a dissertation, the cover page has got similarity submitted in satisfaction of conditions of that and that and that and that. And I helped somebody check their Turnitin, and those came up, and that person got over a 50% similarity. And when I was going through, it was that small matches thing was all there. in that thing, and it was very frustrating for that colleague. So is there any way in which students can not submit when they check their similarity and only submit when they're satisfied? And secondly, is there any way in which the cover pages, headings, and can be excluded from the Turnitin test? Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Mr. Mtanyane will answer all. I see Shanali has started also answering in the chat, but let's take Ruby, then Dr. Shapley after her.
Thank you, Miss Mkabile. Mine is actually not coming as a question, but I would like to, after listening to the presentation, I would like to kind of position ourselves as writing center in this whole scenario. The reason why I'm doing that is I'm actually very glad that the supervisors, lecturers, and the postgraduate students do seem to get training on how to check similarity levels. Because prior to this, we have been getting requests from postgraduate students coming to us to check similarity levels, to put their assignments on Turnitin. We do not have the manpower because we also have to deal with undergraduate students to teach them how to write. So I just want to say to the lecturers and to the supervisors, they should encourage their students to do that for themselves, check similarity levels. Now, where we come in as a writing center is, suppose the similarity levels are high, indicating that students are having a problem with issues of, citations, how to embed citations in their writing, how to summarize and paraphrase. Then the students can come to us so that we can help them with reducing the similarity levels. So I'm just bringing this so that, the colleagues can note that, and also the postgraduate students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Dr. Shapley?
Thank you, colleagues, for this training. It's been quite an eye-opening and interesting. Ms. Nonzogazi Ketiwe is one of my postgraduate students, and I really appreciate the question she asked. What I'm finding here is the fact that, yes, we've got about a cluster of students under one project that is funded by NRF and Medical Research Council, but they've got different streams under one project. And we kept struggling on this issue because we were busy using the previous accounts that we had, which we've been trained on by our library and connected to and if you invite students to that account and they can actually work on their own and you encourage what they should do. But what I like what you have done here is to put Turnitin in Wise Up or in Model so that students at the same time can access. And also I can see that I have much control on the one that is here. And I kept asking my librarians now and again when I'm coming into problems with the other system that we've been connected to, which is the same thing and so forth. But I think you've made it kind of like user-friendly for us here and understanding how much power we have as supervisors to ensure that there is a quality at the end of the day. So thank you so much. I really appreciate my students being here and what they've raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shapley. We also appreciate that you guys invited students.
Yes, we did.
Ms. Pambane, I think you will also provide responses. You are the last speaker, then over to you, Mr. Mtanyane, for responses as well.
Okay, I think what will help the students not to have, Mr. MD, please, can you go back to your settings there? I want you to go to the place where you are putting in, you are submitting to the repository. Can you hover over where you want the assignment to be stored? I think if the settings say no repository, then the assignments, they can't be compared to each other because they are not stored anywhere. They are just sitting in space. They are just being they are just looking at similarities instead of comparing these assignments against each other. The problem starts when the assignments are stored in a standard repository or in an institutional repository. Then those papers would be compared to each other. I guess that would be the solution to the problem that student has. That the papers are submitted to no repository.
Thank you, Ms. Bambane. Back to you, Mr. Mtanyan.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Mkabile. My colleagues have responded to, I think, to the questions, because some of these were just comments. But the question was that, one question that I've noted was that one, the way of avoiding, the question of how do we ensure that the percentage is decreased, because sometimes you find out that Turnitin would even look at the cover page, and then it would on the cover page, then it would highlight a number of sentences there and interpret them as if the student has plagiarized. So I think Upum, as she has already said here, that we should in the assignments we should avoid storing the papers in the standard repository, unless it's the students are submitting then now the final dissertation, then you can then choose the standard repository so that it can be saved there. But if it's draft proposals and all that, then you should select no repository. Otherwise, when students are working on their dissertations, then it will interpret them as if they have copied some work from somewhere. And another thing that I would like to say is that this excludes small matches. It's very important. So in the case where a student is writing a sentence, let's say they are writing literature review, because everyone, when they are writing a dissertation, they would have a literature review as a heading. So now, because you have excluded small matches up to 5, then it will not interpret that literature review as a plagiarism, and it would not have an effect on the percentage. But if you would change this number to 0, then it would mean now that when a student is writing literature review, then that literature review will be highlighted, and that will add to the total percentage of the similarity index report. So these are some of the things that you need to check as an instructor. So colleagues, I'm gonna move down, and there's grade mark options and common module settings and all of this. I think they are done mostly by the instructional designers. So I'm gonna skip all those because today we're just focusing on Turnitin, and then I'm gonna click on save and display. So now you have done all your settings as an instructor. Then when you are done, you need to click on save and display, or you can click on save and return to the course. So I'm gonna click on save and display so that I can see my assignment. So what I will do now is that I will change my role to a student role. So I will show the students on how to submit an assignment on Turnitin. So this is the assignment that has been created. You can see the title, you can see the start date, you can see the due date, the post date, the marks for this assignment. So this is how it will be displayed to you as a student. So I'm gonna switch my role and then I'm gonna submit a paper on this assignment. So to do that, I'm gonna click on the drop-down arrow and click on switch role. This can only be done by instructors, colleagues. Students, they only have a student preview role. But it's just that now I want to enter a student preview mode so that I can take the student step by step on how to submit an assignment. So for you as a student, this is the assignment. Now I'm on the student preview. So this is the assignment that has been posted by the lecturer. So if I want to submit my paper, I would simply click here on this button, submit paper. I click there once, and then submission title. The title, I'm gonna type research proposal. Then now I need to select the exact file that I want to upload for this assignment. And I can see that the maximum file size is 100 megabytes and maximum number of files, 1. So I can either drag the file to this space, or I can click on that button. And then I can click on choose file. And then I would go to my location where I'm saving my files. So I'm gonna select a file here. Okay, I'm gonna select this file and click on open. You can see now that there is an author here. By default, since I have already logged in on WhatsApp, it's gonna take my name and my surname. Okay, that's fine. And then now here is my file name, which means I have attached the file. And then choose license. I'm gonna leave it as it is, and then I click on upload this file. So once I click on upload this file, now I will see my file, it's here, and then I need to click on add submission. Once I click on add submission, now it's uploading your submission to Turnitin. And then once I submit on Turnitin, this is the receipt. So it has got a Turnitin submission ID. This is very important, colleagues. You need to take a screenshot of this so that if you're having a challenge with your submission and then you need some assistance from the library, then Ms. Mbambani, the first thing that she will need from you is this ID, because she's the one who's communicating with Turnitin. So she needs this ID so that she can send it to Turnitin so that they can be able to assist you, because sometimes there are cases where you would submit a document and by mistake you submit it into a repository. And then when you are submitting it again, you then find out that the similarity index report is very high. So make sure that you save this ID somewhere. So you have submitted the document, you can then click on close. So now you can see now that here you have got what view digital receipt. The submission title is here. The Turnitin paper ID is there. Submitted when on 1805 at 1204. And then the similarity is pending. So it's still, Turnitin is still processing your paper. Hence, the similarity is pending. Once it has done processing your paper, then you would be able to see the similarity here, and then you will just click, and then it will take you directly to your paper, and you will have your similarity report. Okay, for now, I'm gonna go to the document that I've already submitted. Whilst we are waiting for this one, Whilst we're waiting for this one, I'm gonna click here. So this is one of the papers that have been submitted. So once it is done processing, and then you click here on the similarity report, then it's gonna take you to this page. On this page, you will see the match overview as Chanel was showing us. Here it is 13%, and you can see which sources was this percentage taken from. So what is important from your side as a student is that you need to click here on the download. You click there on the download, and then you can either choose to download the current view, or you can choose to download the digital receipt or the original submitted file. So what we want to do is to download the current view so that we can go and edit the document. So you simply need to click on current view. Okay, please try again. Then download, please try again. I am not sure whether it's my laptop, it's this laptop. Okay, preparing download. So it's still preparing my download. So once I download this document, then I would be able to see the highlighted parts. For example, here is an integral part of, then it means now you need to paraphrase here. And you can see here, use language in a precise and subject specific way, adopt a position or. So this means now that this has been taken from that source. Okay, so I have downloaded the document. It's here. It was submitted last year. So this is the assignment. And then if you are scrolling down, if you are scrolling on the document, you will see the highlighted parts. So these are the parts where you need to focus on as a student as you are editing your document. So as you scroll down to the end of your document, again, you will see the originality report. The similarity index is there, and it's larger than the other numbers. It's 13%. And then the internet sources, it's 9%. The publications, it's 0%. And then the student papers here is 10%. So these are all the sources where the students have copied from. So yeah, this is the report you get as a student, and then you would need to focus on the highlighted parts and edit your documents and work on your document. Let me go back and again try to refresh here and see if my report has been, or it's still pending. Colleagues, it's still pending. It's taking some time. I think I've got a number of pages on this document. But once it is done, you will see the percentage here, and then you will click once, then it's going to take you to this screen. Do you want to say something?
Can you refresh?
Okay, yes,
we used to refresh the page.
Yes, I'm refreshing it. I am refreshing the page, but I think that file has got, yeah, it's still pending. So whilst we are still waiting for this similarity report, colleagues, are there any questions on how to submit a Turnitin assignment as a student, downloading it, and then focusing on areas that needs to be edited? Ms. Mkabile, I will hand over to you whilst I'm waiting for this report to be generated.
Thank you, Lungile. Maybe we can engage Buiselo's question. He's thanking us, in fact, he's thanking Chanel and Lungile, and he's asking whether is it possible to faculties on request. I think the response there my colleagues will add, yes, it is possible to visit the faculties on request, but Shanali is our guest. So I think that if you need assistance, the library and information services at Mthatha campus can assist you. Mr. Ngoyini will also respond. And the DLT office, the Learning and Teaching with Technology team, is also responsible for assisting with what Lungile is demonstrating. So yes, you can write to us, you can write to Lungile, you can write to me, you can talk to Dr. Matenda. Yes, we can visit the faculties upon request. Lungile?
Okay. Now I'm going to use an assignment that has already been submitted because it looks like it's taking some time. So this is the assignment that I was demonstrating on. So once Turnitin has done the processing, so you should be able to see the similarity here. You can see now that it's 13%. So if you just click here, when you're moving your mouse pointer around at that 13%, you will find out that you can click on this 13%. So if you click there, it's going to take you straight to this page, the Turnitin page, and then this is your report. So you can click there on 13%, and then you will be able to see all those sources. So you can download the document back to your laptop, and then you can focus on the parts that needs editing. They will be highlighted as I've already indicated that. So I think on my side, colleagues, I'm done. We're supposed to finish at 12. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lungile. Yes, I see that we are losing some of our audience because we indicated that we will finish at 12. I will entertain 2 questions, colleagues, before I hand over to Dr. Matenda for concluding remarks and a vote of thanks.
Okay, before you hand over to Dr. Matenda, so now you can see now that that report has been generated, and it is 93% because this paper has already been submitted. So you can see that there is 93% and it's the color there is red, which means that percentage is very high. So if I click here on this 93%, it's gonna now take me straight to the Turnitin report. And then if I click here on this 93%, you can see that this paper has been submitted to Rhodes. It's a student paper that has been submitted to Rhodes, 87%. And then the other sources are from these websites. So that's how it works, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Lungile. I don't see any hands. So I hope that colleagues maybe will also continue engaging us on the chat. Mandy, I will give to you.
Thank you. I have put the question on the chat as well. What is the accepted similarity index for WUSU?
All right. Mr. Mtanyane, is it there in the policy? Mr. Ngoyini, anyone who is aware?
From my side, what I know is that this percentage, it should come from the faculties. We as the library, we don't have the right to say that the accepted is this percentage. That one should be decided by the faculties and the departments, and then it should be implemented. Yeah. Mr. Ngoyini, do you want to add?
No, Mr. Mtanyana, this is, I think, as far as I know, that the percentage will come from the faculties. We don't have a standard one. and the library cannot make a decision on that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ngoyini. Mandi, maybe you will still have to take this question further. I know the standard.
Thank you very much.
I know the standard across the academia, but also I am not aware whether we do have at WSU. I will hand over to Dr. Matenda to wrap up for us. Dr. Matenda?
The voice that you're hearing is that it's not of Dr. Matenda. I'm standing in for him. It's Mrs. Nube. So he is in a workshop, so he asked me to stand in for him. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'll make it very brief, hopefully. I would like to thank our guest, Shanali Govender, and I would also like to express our thanks to Ms. Nkabile as the head of the Learning and Teaching with Technology unit in the DLT, and the director of the libraries, I think here at NMD, Mr. Ngoyini, our colleague, Mr. Lungile Mdanyana. Thank you very much for this eye-opening, very informative webinar on very important issues that are at the heart of the success of our students, because we know that writing and reading, they are at the foundation. They are foundational skills that actually are at the core of student success and student excellence. If our students are to excel, they should be able to be exposed to the academic writing discourses. And one of the important issues that has been covered in this webinar is the unpacking of the concepts of academic integrity, focusing on plagiarism, examples of plagiarism, and how to avoid plagiarism. Thank you very much, Shanali Govender, for taking us through that aspect of academic writing, because our students do need to understand the forms of plagiarism, the causes, and also how to avoid, you know, those elements, undesirable elements that chip at the foundation of academic integrity. And then to Mr. Mdanyana and the library staff for, I want to call it demystifying the issue of Turnitin. You have made it sound so simple as you took us through the processes of how to create an assignment on Turnitin. And I'm sure that colleagues that are lecturers and those that are supervisors, they have been enlightened, and I think it has been made to sound very easy as he took us through the steps. And I hope that then they will be in a position also to assist their postgraduate students, so that together we can work towards making our university a university of excellence as we pursue and promote academic integrity. Let's continue to engage. Let's continue to have more of these webinars. I think all of us seated here can agree that we will live here being different people because of this webinar, and we'll be looking at academic writing, how to approach academic writing, and how to teach issues of plagiarism and checking of similarity levels in a different way. Thank you very much to all of you who have attended. I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mama Ncube, for those kind words on behalf of Dr. Matenda's office, the DLT office in Umtata campus. Colleagues, my final word is let's use Turnitin as a tool to empower the students. Students would still need to be taught academic writing, and each discipline has its own way in which it inducts students in the discipline. So those are the tricks and skills that we need to teach our students for them to succeed. Thank you very much for attending. You made our meeting a success, and colleagues, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.